What's going on, guys? Today I just wanted to make a video. I think it's a really important video to talk about, especially as a single dad. So I want to talk about the journey of getting a dog as a single dad, as a single parent, when you have kids at home, and you want to make your kids happy. So starting from the beginning of the journey, when I became a single dad, moved into an apartment. I always dreamed of having a dog. Like, that was one of the things I was excited about becoming an adult. Was becoming a parent and then having the dog, having the dream scenario. White picket fence, the house, the dog, the family, the kids. And when I finally got my own house, I was like, I want to get a dog, especially being a single dad. Like, obviously when I was going through family court, like, dating just hasn't been an option at all. And honestly, it gets really lonely in times where you don't have your children with you. So when I got my dog, originally we wanted to get a golden retriever, and that was a couple years ago. And when we were gonna go get a dog, the transmission in my car blew. So the money that we were gonna put towards a dog, I had to put towards getting a new car. And my son was absolutely heartbroken, and it was hard because he'd keep seeing dogs everywhere we would go, and he wanted a dog of his own. But the problem about that is that when they see dogs, they only see like a momentary part of it. Like, they don't see the entire part of the dog ownership, and what goes into that. So, once things finally started to get settled, I had a reliable car again. I was starting to pay down my attorney fees for my dog, or for my court battle. I met somebody that I was friends with that had a dog had two dogs that they were breeding, and they were having puppies, which is his parents. So Rocky's a miniature Australian Shepherd. He's a blue merle. He's a little overweight. He's a great dog, but I want to kind of tell you guys the difficulties of, there's multiple facets to this. Logistics wise, training, kind of building that bond between your kids and the dog. So one of the difficulties is my son's extremely energetic. These guys are extremely energetic, and it could be a lot for a lot of reasons. So number one, I live in an apartment, so having an apartment is hard for a high energy dog like these. They need to be able to get outside and run and play. And, there's times that we can do that, like where we can go outside and run a leash, but we don't have the yard where we can just run around and my son can play ball and play frisbee and they can run around the yard. So, like, that part's hard because we're kind of restricted from that standpoint. But the hard part too is that, like, especially in the puppy years, like, for some reason my dog, like, he's fine when it's just me at home, but when my son's here, it's like he thinks his partner in crime, his play partner is here. So he's nonstop annoying my son to try to play. And sometimes my son just wants to sit here and watch TV. He just wants to relax. And it's kind of hard when you have a dog that's constantly sitting there, like, nipping at you, like, trying to get you to play with him. And, like, I understand both sides of it. Like, I feel bad for the dog because, like, he wants to play because he thinks his best friend is here, his human's here. There's times where they really connect really well, but then there's other times where, like, my son just wants his personal space and his personal time, and Rocky doesn't want to give it to him. So I would say, like, if you're a parent and you're thinking about getting a dog, really think about the process of what's going to really go into being a pet owner. So from a standpoint is, like, I tell people, if I could go back and do it again, I probably wouldn't do it. I love Rocky, and I love his companionship, and those times that my son's not here, it definitely makes things a lot more manageable. But there's been drawbacks to that. So, and what I mean by that is, obviously we live in different households. Rocky's here with me, but my son's with his mom primarily. She's the custodial parent. So I mean, I see my son every single day, but like my son doesn't want to stay as often as he used to. So a lot of times he wants to go home at night. He kind of wants his alone time away from my dog because my dog just constantly annoys him. Um, and that's just part of the ownership. You know, like it's almost like you're training two people. Like you're training your dog, you're house training them, you're teaching them tricks, you're teaching them to be crate trained and stuff like that. But you're also training your kid in how to act with a dog, how to treat a dog, how to train them. Like there's like simple things like Rocky's super trained. Like he listens when you tell him to sit, he listens when you tell him to stay, to lay down, all that. But like there's simple things that make things complicated that like a little kid doesn't want to listen to, like simple like commands. Like I'm like, he's super smart, he will listen to your commands, but if you do certain things, he's gonna wanna play with you. And the problem that my son has is that like his play and his anger look almost identical. So him and my son like rough house all the time. Like my son tackles him, they wrestle, they play like rough. But then like when my son gets mad and he wants Rocky to stop playing, he kind of acts the same way. You know, he pushes him away. And I tell my son, I'm like, that's what makes him think you're playing. Like Rocky doesn't understand when you're trying not to play. He doesn't understand when you're trying to relax. He just sees your body language, and his body language doesn't know the difference between anger and play because they look almost identical. So having a puppy for me was extremely difficult. Like if I could do it over again, I probably would have gotten like an older dog, maybe adopted one that was already trained. Because training them is extremely difficult. You know, you get them here and they just immediately start pooping and peeing on the ground. You're constantly rushing to take them out. You're trying to crate train them. You're trying to teach them basic skills. You're trying to teach them how to be on a leash. And it's like all these difficult things, and like it's compounded, like especially like when you have a little kid around and you're trying to train both of them and how to like act with one another. So there's been a lot of challenges with that. Like I hope that eventually like my son figures a way to kind of manage his emotions around him, because like again, my son doesn't really know how to differentiate between his play and his anger. And then my dog just thinks he wants to play all the time because Australian Shepherds are super playful, super energetic, and that's all I want to do is play. So like for a dog like this, if I had a house that had a fenced-in yard, it probably wouldn't be as big of a deal because they could both go outside and play. You know, but we live in an apartment, and unfortunately, we don't have the luxury of having a fenced-in backyard. And so, I mean, we could take them outside. We can run on a leash, and we can like do that kind of stuff. And there's a small dog park in our apartment complex. But you can't really run around there because there's dog poop and stuff, and I don't want my son falling in dog poop. But I guess what I wanted to tell you guys is like, especially if you're a single parent and like you're doing this on your own, it is extremely difficult, especially as a puppy. And if you're working full time, you know, when they're a puppy, they say you can only keep them in the crate for their age +1. So if they're 3 months old, you can only keep them in the crate for at max 4 hours. And that's that way all the way up until they're about a year and a half, a year. And then they could be in the crate for about 8 hours to 9 hours. But I feel incredibly guilty ever doing that. I mean, luckily Rocky's crate trained, so it's a little easier. So he doesn't mind going in his crate, but like for that first year and a half, like if I was gone, he was in his crate. Luckily for the last couple months, or last like month and a half or so, we've been keeping him outside during the day. So he has free reign of the house during the day. He's luckily stopped chewing a lot, but we still keep him crate trained at night. My son wants him to sleep with us, but the problem with when I keep him out at night is that he tries to wake us up at like 3:30 in the morning. For us to have our sanity, to be able to keep our own sleep schedules, I put him in the crate at night, and then he has free reign of the house during the day. Uh, but those, when I first brought him home, it was probably the most overwhelming experience I'd ever experienced. Like even more so than becoming a dad. Like I think it was. It sounds weird to say that like bringing home a puppy was more difficult than bringing home a baby. Um, Obviously becoming a first-time parent, there's a lot of challenges. Um, you're learning how to change diapers, you're learning how to feed them, you're learning how to keep them safe and comfort, learn how to bathe them and all that stuff. Um, but they're stationary. When you get a dog, uh, the puppies are all over the place. I mean, I guess they're both pretty similar in the fact that they both like try to like go around and find everything that can hurt them. You have to like baby proof and dog proof everything. So from that standpoint, they're kind of similar, but logistically, it's been difficult. Again, I work full time during the day. If I was working hybrid, it'd be a little bit easier. If I was working from home, it'd obviously be a lot easier. So, like logistically, I need to figure out things like when during the day, my stepmom comes over and lets him out, takes him for walks, lets him go during the day, which I'm glad for because it's not fair to the dog that they have to sit in the house all the time. And then even for like my army weekends where I have to go away, I have to find either somebody to watch him or put him up in a doggy hotel. I mean, luckily to this point, I haven't had to put him in a doggy hotel yet. I've had people come house sit for me, which has been pretty awesome. But like that's part of dog ownership is like now if I want to go somewhere, I have to pre-plan that part of it, and that's like an added expense. And then being a single dad too is like having a dog is pretty expensive. From the food to the vet bills, and especially for a dog like Rocky, he's got long hair, so he needs grooming because he's a long-haired dog. As he's fumbling around here. So my advice for you guys is, if you're getting a dog, or if you're thinking about getting a dog, do your homework. I hope this can be kind of like an educational thing for you guys. Having a dog in an apartment is possible. You can still take them for walks. If you have a bigger apartment like I do, like I have a super long hallway, so like we can play ball inside the house. He can play fetch. If you watch my one short, I play golf with him where I use his tennis ball as a golf ball, and I chip it into his mouth. So that's kind of fun. But definitely having a dog, I thought was gonna make my relationship with my son a little easier, because I thought that the dog would be able to help my son with his anxiety and stress. But like as you see, Rocky's like kind of crazy right now. Sometimes this is how he acts, and my son doesn't know how to deal with the emotional stress of that, because my son doesn't know how to calm down to let my dog know it's time to Rocky sit. Good boy. So he's trained, but my son has difficulty with it. So that's what I kind of want to tell you guys is like getting a dog or a pet seems like a great idea because it'll make your child happy, but there's a lot of things that go into dog ownership, and especially if it's just you. Honestly, having a dog has kind of strained my relationship with my son a little bit because, before my dog, my son used to stay over all the time, and now my son comes over, but he doesn't necessarily want to stay here for too long because our dog annoys him. So that part's difficult for me. I felt like I did something to try to give my son something he wanted, and ended up seeming like it kind of backfired. So I guess this is like the moment of realness is like I love the dog, and like I love having him around, and like when my son's not here, it definitely makes things easier for me, because Rocky's my emotional support animal, because I do have stress and PTSD from stuff when I was a child. So Rocky definitely helps with that, but it definitely has made things more difficult with my son. You know, me and my son still have a great relationship, but my son doesn't know how to. He doesn't know how to deal with his emotions when he starts getting overwhelmed and annoyed by the dog. So, um, you know, a lot of times I'll have to put Rocky in his cage or his crate while my son's here. Um, you know, sometimes I have to let my son just go play in his room by himself, let the dog kind of calm down. Um, so, as great of a dog as Rocky is, sometimes it can be a challenge. And I don't want you guys to just think that, like, it's definitely not all sunshine and rainbows when it comes to dog ownership. Um, you know, I'm not getting rid of him, but uh, it's definitely made things a challenge, and I wish I would have done more homework prior to getting a dog. Um, you know, we had my son got a pet Pac-Man frog at his mom's house, and he got mad because the Pac-Man frog never comes out. Um, so he gets mad that the frog doesn't give him any attention, but then he comes over here and he gets mad at our dog because the dog gives him too much attention. So it's like, I don't know what the happy medium is between a dog and a Pac-Man frog. So um, let me guys know down in the comments. Let me know what your situation is. Are you thinking about getting a dog? Do you have a dog? Do you have a specific breed you're thinking about? I would say if you're living in an apartment like I am, probably getting an Australian Shepherd or a high energy dog like a Golden Retriever or Labrador. It's manageable, but it's not ideal. Like ideally, I would have a yard where my dog could run around in, um, and kind of just play, and my son could do that. I think if we had that set up, that situation, I don't think my son would be as annoyed by our dog as he is. But with the confined space, uh, it definitely makes it more difficult. So that's kind of all I want to talk about today, guys. Again, when you think about getting a pet, take all these things into consideration. Like, there's more to it than just petting your dog. Like, as great as that part of it is, there's a lot of things that logistically that go into pet ownership. So if you have any questions, please let me know. Please let me know your stories. If you got a dog, if it's different than you thought it was going to be, I'd love to hear your guys' opinions. We thank you guys for watching. Rocky, high five. See, he's a really smart dog. So I hope you guys have a great day. God bless you.